What on earth are you doing?
Welcome back, everyone. So far, the summit has been amazing. I know I'm feeling pretty pumped, and it's been so great to hear from so many different storytellers that have all come together for this amazing summit. They've been everywhere from animal care to community well-being to volunteerism. We've heard from 3 people who are making a difference in their communities, and I especially am feeling super inspired. So how can you make a difference? Well, we've seen here today that one of the most powerful tools for making change is good communication and also staying connected with others. To grow as communicators, we all, of course, want to learn from the best, just like Justin talked about, is learning from others is super important. And that's why we've asked Karen Brandt to lead today's workshop. So Karen is a results-oriented strategic communications professional who has strengthened reputations for companies, governments, communities, and nonprofits across North America. She has a passion for sustainability and for the past 25 years has built common positions and partnerships with First Nations, environmental groups, customers, and governments. Her company, Brandt Strategy, provides strategic advice to clients who are committed to building strong businesses through proactive partnerships, smart public policy, and a commitment to sustainability. Karen has held senior executive level positions in both the private and public sectors, including Mosaic Forest Management, Interfor Corporation, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, and Forestry Innovation Investment Ltd. Karen was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba. She holds an honors Bachelor of Journalism with a minor in political science from Carleton University in Ottawa. Throughout Karen's workshop, just a reminder, if you have any questions, to please pop them into the chat box, and any questions we can't get today will be answered in a follow-up email. So please welcome Karen Brandt.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here today, and before I kick off my presentation, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the territory of the Cowichan Nation, coming to you live today from Cowichan Bay on Vancouver Island. So thank you again for inviting me to this workshop. It was so inspirational to listen to Justin talk, and we're going to talk a bit today about developing your own story. And wow, Justin has his own story, and that is exactly how you do it. Bring some passion to it, know what that story is and what it is that you're trying to do, and inspire people to change through your own story. So, so it's just an honor to follow up on that presentation. There's lots to cover today. A workshop like this is usually a whole day on itself, if not more, but so I'm going to move through things pretty quickly today. But feel free to ask questions as we go along, and also I will include my email address at the end of this presentation as well, and I'm open anytime to emails and happy to respond to them. So here we go. Inspiring change. I'm passionate about inspiring change. I think communications, and Justin alluded to that too, is absolutely, you know, communication is all about inspiring change, finding the right words, the right visuals, all of those pieces, and bringing it together to have people feel motivated to do something different. So our goals today is about developing your own story, improving your writing skills, and a bit about your presentation skills, especially in this new world of social distancing, and producing interesting stories that do inspire people to make changes. So communications, what is it? I love this quote. Libby Larsen is a famous American composer. The great myth of our times is that technology is communication. And I think that we have believed that, and you know, certainly now with technology like Zoom helping us in today's world of COVID, technology feels like it's communication, but at the end of the day, it's still the way we connect with people. It's the words we choose and how our stories are told. That is communications. So a little bit about communications. It's the use of messages to generate meaning across a variety of different channels. It allows us to reach mutual understandings and overcome barriers. It's, you know, when you walk into a tough room where you know that people have their own positions and you need to talk about your position, but also bring people to a common place, communications is the absolute critical tool in those types of situations. And it advances culture, facilitates business, and it inspires action, which is why we are here today. So I'm not quickly the agenda. We're going to talk about our own story. We're going to talk about social media and using photography as part of that. We'll do a quick round through presentations, friend or foe. I've got a love-hate relationship with PowerPoints, but we can talk about how to overcome some of those issues we all have with PowerPoints. There's a bit of a bonus round on media relations, and if there's time, any other questions that come up or other wishes that you want me to cover in terms of communication. So in this first bit, before we take our break this afternoon, we're going to have 2 working group sessions. This is the first one, so it's sort of important to listen to this because there's going to be an exercise at the end of it. So this is the elevator pitch, telling your own story in 60 seconds. So the objective here is to develop your own personal story, your own conversation that increases understanding about why you're passionate about what you do, why you do what you do, and what you would like, what your call to action is. What is it you would like people to do or change? So it's short, it's simple, and it's inspiring. That's your story. So it's not about what I do. Hi, I'm a communications consultant. It's why I do what I do. I'm passionate about communities and sustainable forest management, right? So here's the different, visuals that talk about what it is, what I do and why I do it. And you can tell just looking at these photos, these volunteers are very passionate about what they do. So it's not about the problem, it's why you should care. So from rivers and lakes, to farmland, to weeds and schoolyards and invasive species. It's not about what the BC Invasive Council does, it's how it makes things better. It's not a call to action, it's about inspiring change, right? So what we want people to do here is to commit to being invasive free in some way, whether it's in their own backyard, whether it's in their community, whatever it is. How are they going to contribute to being invasive free here in British Columbia? So that was really fast, but it's a great icebreaker, especially when we're in person, but it's going to be a bit of an icebreaker for us in terms of this communications session. So what I want you to do now is take a few minutes to develop your 1-minute pitch about your organization, about yourself, what it is that you do, why you do it, and what you're trying to change. So I'm going to give you guys about 3 minutes here to work on that. It doesn't have to be perfect, and then we're going to come back and I'll ask for a few volunteers. You guys sound like you're a pretty good group of volunteers, so I'll be looking for some thumbs up, and you can try your pitch out on us. So let's start the clock now, and in 3 minutes, I'll start looking for volunteers. Great, okay, time's up, folks. In the normal setting, what we would have done is actually moved around the room and tried our pitch out on each other. That certainly gets the energy level up really, really fast. But I am going to ask people to do thumbs up and or use the chat. How do we want to do that, Torn? Do we have any volunteers?
Yeah, so if anyone would love to share their elevator pitch, if you could just go ahead and click your reactions tab at the bottom of your Zoom and throw a thumbs up, and we will be happy to highlight your video and unmute you so you can share that with us. That would be awesome. Great.
Well, I'll kick it off. It is tough. This one is tough to do, but it is about getting comfortable in your own story and claiming some space. So I'll kick it off. Hi, I'm Karen Brandt. I'm a strategic communications consultant who's passionate about healthy communities and healthy forests. I believe if we work collectively through science, data, and traditional knowledge, our communities can have a strong future. And I'd like to work with you on that. So,
Awesome.
any
Oh,
others?
sorry. Yes, actually, we have one thumbs up from Patty Beer. So if we could get Patty Beer's video and audio unmuted, I think she'd like to share.
Okay, start video.
Hey, Patty.
Hi, can you see me and hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I've given this a bit of thought. Is that better without the light? Yeah. I've given this a bit of thought over the years, so it wasn't quite as hard for me to do it quickly. So my name is Patty Beer. I'm an advocate for nature so that every living thing on the planet can thrive, including humans. I like this because it allows small daily actions, but it also encourages me to keep an eye, ear, nose, and talk about bigger opportunities every day. I see myself as a catalyst, that thing that brings people together. I love to network and meet people and talk about my passions and talk about their passions. I care because I love nature and I'm concerned for every being on the planet, not just human beings. I like joint action. Partnering will hopefully create synergy, and more can happen as a result than if we're working singly. And I can make a difference every day in the choices that I'm making and in the way that I'm arriving wherever I go, ready to interact.
That's fantastic. Definitely your passion came out. And what would your ask be if you were speaking to a potential volunteer or donor to one of your causes?
I think I would have to tailor it to whichever thing I'm doing. So I work for the Burrowing Owl Society of BC, and I have had to go to, I've gone to B Corp meetings and that kind of thing. In that case, my ask would be, please look at our website and consider a donation to the hard work we're doing and the fact that our group is such a great volunteer organization. And if I were doing it more, I do a lot with my exhibit at the airport, trying to reach that. I have kind of a captive audience of the top 1% of wealthiest people on the planet that were flying through international. And for them, I talk to them about going to the OceanWise website, looking at actions to help the oceans, and considering joining in on a beach cleanup or something like that.
Great. Yeah, that's perfect. Any others, Torrin?
So Karen, we've got a participant that has put their pitch into the chat, and it's from Daphne. So it reads, when I was a child, I loved to have people to imitate and look up to. I volunteered to give children someone else aside from family to take inspiration from. The satisfaction of helping others outlasts the immediate amount of effort you put into the work. Inspiring you to take action and better themselves is how the council makes things better. For others, they can do anything to spread the information, even if it's just having a conversation. The message will eventually reach the heart of a potential volunteer, and with that, the amount of help will only grow.
That's Daphne, that one's fantastic. I was thinking about if you were in an elevator with a CEO, that you were trying to get that CEO's attention and said, when I was a child, I love to have people to imitate and look up to. Like, it's such a great, it's such a grabber immediately. It's like, oh, there's a story coming here. That is really well done. Thank you.
Awesome. And then next we have Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam.
Hi, Sam.
I'm a student at Vancouver Island University, and I am actually a bird biologist. So I am a bird bander and monitorer, and I work with passerines, migrants, and residents. So I do a lot of education outreach with younger students as well as university students and people from the community. And I try to teach people about why birds are important and why they're really cool and why we should protect them. Because Canadian birds have been in decline for the past 30 years. Over 50% of species have been in decline. And I think that it's really something we need to start looking at, and more people need to care, and more people in the community need to understand that it's a problem. So when I'm talking to people, I often will mention things that they can do to help, and not necessarily go out of their way and volunteer, because a lot of bird volunteering involves getting up very early in the morning. Yesterday I woke up at 3 o'clock to go. But other things that people can do is, monitor their nest, put up nest boxes in their yards and monitor those, or they can, put out feeders and watch birds and submit that kind of data. And the most important thing is to remind people to keep their cats indoors, because cats are an invasive species that kill billions of birds every year. So,
I'm getting a kitten next week.
So you can keep it inside.
It will only be inside. Absolutely. That was great.
Thank you. I did that off the top of my head.
That was really good. And that's your personal story, right? It's why, I call it, it's why you get up in the morning, right? It's the spring in your step. And when you bring that to your story, rather than, read off some corporate, this is what I do, and, and what my organization does. Instead, it's you bring your own personal passion. People are immediately engaged by that. So yeah, that's really great. Thank you. Okay, any others? Or are we ready to move on to any other volunteers? Or otherwise, we'll move on to the next exercise. That was great. Thank you. One day I hope you'll practice that over the coming months and years. And even if you want me to take a look at it in the coming weeks and you want to email it to me, happy to take a look at that and help you out in any way with that. But it's definitely the foundation of good communication. All right, moving on here. Social media. All right. This is going to be your best friend in terms of communications, and there's lots of great tools out there. I would say, definitely younger generation is better at it, but it's one of those areas that gets abused. It requires a lot more deliberate and strategic thought than people probably give it credit for. So I want to run you through some tips around social media, because it will be part of your overall communications package of tools that you'll need to use over the coming months, especially in this social distancing world. So first thing is knowing your audience. So figuring out who the audience is that you're trying to attract, their demographics, that includes their age, where they're located, cultural pieces that may come into it as well, understanding the different types of platforms those audience use. So don't jump straight to your platform, figure out who your audiences are first when you're developing your social media package. And then once you've got that audience in place and you know who it is, engage fast. The other tool that is really helpful is a weekly social media calendar. Don't try and do this by the seat of your pants. And this goes to that deliberate and strategic piece of social media. You want to have weekly an idea of what it is that you want to post on social media, what platforms you're going to use, what the stories are. I can tell you, one of the organizations I work with, last week we were sitting down figuring out next week's social media calendar. And we all knew it was Invasive Species Month. So, right away we made sure we're connected with Invasive Species Council. We're resharing some of their stuff. We created some of our own pieces around it so that we can really blast it out this coming week. It's also Mental Health Week as well. So, figuring out those pieces of the story that we would like to tell and what the appropriate platform would be around Mental Health Week. You will also want to identify influencers in your sphere. So for instance, it could be researchers, it could be universities, others that are important influencers. So reach out to them, connect with them, offer to reshare some of their posts. Everybody's happy when their work is reshared. So, and then also just keep measuring, in terms of your audience. Is it growing? Is it the right audience? Do you need to go back and recalibrate? And excuse me, you should almost be measuring and recalibrating on a weekly, if not every month schedule, definitely, because you could find that you're literally barking up the wrong tree and you've missed a couple of weeks of opportunity. So doing that weekly touch point to see how you're doing is important with social media. So general tips, ask yourself why you're using this platform, who you're going to reach, what posts work best for this platform. So there's lots of, if you just even do a Google search on, best platforms, you can sort of see the best case studies that are out there. But definitely it's a combination of strong visual with a good headline. And how are your posts going to be unique to this platform? So what will grab people? You also want to be consistent. You want to focus your messaging. Make sure it's storytelling, not marketing. So it shouldn't, not every single social media tweet or post should be about getting people to donate. That's part of it, but it shouldn't be all the time. Otherwise, people tune out. And again, I talked about joining other communities. So make sure you do that, because they'll start resharing your work when it's good. They won't reshare your work when it's not good. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So know your limits. These are the character limits based on the platforms. This is a great social media cheat sheet. And again, I believe my presentation will be available afterwards. So feel free to use it, but it is from Flipcause. So if you look them up online, you'll see this cheat sheet. And I use a lot. I have it pinned to my board. And I'm not going to go through this verbatim, but lots of good information in there. So next big exercise. This is the second of the 2 exercises I mentioned. So this one, we're going to break out into 4 groups. You're going to have a facilitator for your group. There's group 1, 2, 3, and 4. After this slide, I'm going to show you a mock scenario. But first of all, group 1, you are going to write a post for Facebook on a pre-event. Now, this event is about an upcoming weed pulling event. So you're going to do a neat post that's going to grab people's attention about this event that's coming up. Group 2, you're going to do the same, but you can use Twitter or Instagram. And when you come back and present, I'm going to ask you why you chose either Twitter or Instagram. Group 3, you're going to develop a post-event. So how did the event go? What would be the type of visual you might use? What would be the headline in there? And you'll do that for Facebook. Group 4, you'll do the same for Twitter or Instagram. And again, I will ask you why you chose Twitter or Instagram. So then we're all going to reconvene, and you're going to present your post to the entire group. So before we break off into the groups, you've got 5 minutes. I'm going to show you the mock scenario. You're organizing a community weed pull event on August the 15th. Given the social distancing rules, we can't do a community-wide event this time. So we're going to ask people to do this in their own yards. The target weed is this nasty Burberry ash in the Cornell area. It's common in people's gardens, at the lake, etc. It's in the schoolyards. So if its spread isn't stopped, it could destroy thousands of hectares that we recently replanted after mountain pine beetle and some of the forest fires. So we really need to get on this fast. Of course, feel free to make up any other facts to help you with your storytelling, but basically focus on the weed pull event August 15th, the Burberry ash, and the fact that we got to stop this weed in its tracks. So facilitators, are we ready to do our breakouts?
Yes,
I believe
we are.
so. Yes, we are.
Great. Do I need to do anything on my end, Torrin?
No, you might actually get thrown into one of the rooms. So whoever gets you in your room, I guess, gets a little bonus there.
Yeah, and I'm just about to open the breakout rooms, and everyone will be automatically sorted into those.
Great.
Awesome.
All right. So why don't we do a quick round table, starting with group 1. I think you had the pre-event Facebook. Who wants to present?
I'll present just because I was taking notes for the group. So our group came up with, we need your help. Did you know that Burberry ash is destroying thousands of hectares of baby trees? So just a quick note about that. It was great because we originally said thousands of hectares of replanted forest, but then one group member said if we said baby trees, it would pull at people's heartstrings, which I thought was great. And then we've got join us on August 15th, 2020 from the comfort of your own backyard. You can make a difference in your community by removing invasive species from your yard, and then click here for more information on the event.
That's fantastic. I love the baby tree. I think I've been in the forest sector too long, so I speak about, hectares and replanting, but baby trees just right away, exactly, right, what we're talking about. So used a lot of emotion there. That was great, and a good call to action. Perfect. Okay, and did we talk about visual?
So we were just about to talk about a visual, but then we got ported back. But originally we had discussed maybe showing a picture of the Burberry ash taking over an area so people could see the impact that it causes right away.
Yeah, great. Good one. Okay, group 2, pre-event, and you had the choice between Twitter or Instagram.
Yes, so we had the opposite problem as Caitlin's group. We were entirely visual. We went straight for Instagram. As someone in the group brought up, we felt like it's more fun platform, whereas a lot of the times something like Twitter could get political or a little more. It's Twitter. Instagram's more fun, so we decided Instagram. Now with that, we wanted to highlight the plant with a big stop sign. So I'm getting very deep graphics here. We're going to get the plant, nice photo of the plant. Stop sign, boom, stop this. On that, we're going to have some key features, hopefully, in the photo that we're going to be able to circle and reference to in point form in the description of the post. Now, we also had the idea of maybe doing multiple photos that people can swipe through on Instagram. One of those photos being a kind of call to action to get your family members out doing it, because this whole thing's meant to be done virtually in your own backyard. So maybe a photo of family members in their backyard working. And as well, we thought pulling at the heartstrings, showing exactly what the Burberry ash is doing and how the destruction that it actually causes is a big one that we wanted to do. And because I like to talk more and we had lots of great ideas, we wanted to use stories as well on top of an Instagram post. So another call to action, like, hey guys, when you're actually out there doing it, we would love to see your stories if you actively working. And yeah. That's
great. That's really, really good. Yeah, storytelling and using other people to tell the story is also really powerful. Did anybody think about videos at all?
Not in the post, no, just the story aspect, videos of people working. Yeah.
Okay, great, good one. All right, we'll move on to group 3 then.
That was us, and post event for Facebook. And we talked about some visuals, and we didn't get the content all stuck together, but we had some ideas. So for the visuals, we talked about a collage that included before and after photos to show the impact, people working with their friends and family. And we talked about tagging lots of the groups that have been involved to broaden that reach. And then in the content, we really talked about leaning on the numbers of things. So the numbers of bags that were pulled, or the number of kilos and the number of people involved. So really trying to show our impact that way.
So that's super. So, when you think about that elevator pitch we talked about earlier, and, sorry, do we have a group 4 as well?
Hello, here I am.
There you are. Okay. Thank you.
So, we did post-event Twitter or Instagram. And first we settled on Instagram because we were all a little more familiar with it. We talked more about the content of the post, I think. We wanted to showcase the how much we pulled by volume, how many cubic meters or garbage bags, like Jenny was just mentioning. A little key message about disposing of invasives safely rather than composting them. Mentioning our plans to restore the area by replanting later, and then posting a link for people to get involved. I did want to say, though, that with the visual element, I love the idea of before and afters, or even video of people. We talked about maybe a photo of people having fun pulling weeds, but a video would probably be even more impactful.
That's great. Well done, guys. So, so I was mentioning, going back to that elevator pitch we did, or your own story, what you guys came up with here you know, it ticks all of those boxes in terms of why, right? The baby trees, the visuals, the befores and afters, the how do you go about doing this? How do you dispose of it? And then also the impact it had just by, you know, a small group of citizens coming together in their own backyards to make a difference. So that's the story. You guys know that story, and you've got these great tools that help you tell those stories. So that was really well done. And you can have a ton of fun on social media. And like I said, it starts though with a plan. Don't try to freewheel this. Really develop your plan, know exactly the types of posts and the visuals you're going to need, the story you're going to tell, and it's going to start with that why, that how, and the impact. And so all your posts they don't have to hit on all of those at once, but they can hit on parts of it, and you start to tell that story over the social media channels. So you can do a build-up of it. And I love the idea of tagging. You can do that pre-event as well to get more people excited about it. Again, they will then reshare as well, which just increases the chances of more people joining on and becoming aware. You can also use tools that allow you to boost. That costs a little bit of money, but there are times where I think it's well to do the boost if you really need to get more attention and more people involved. So you can do that pretty economically as well if you've got the budget. Before we break, I think we're coming up on a break, correct? I think we have one question here.
Yeah,
Somebody
there's a question from Serena. Yeah. Wondering if you can expand more on engage fast. So she's wanting some helpful info.
Right, and that's about building your plan around social media. So we talked about identifying the audience. So once you've identified that the audience, the platforms they use, and then you look at your platforms that you have available. So what you want to do is reach out and start following, inviting people to follow you, all of those tools so that you've engaged them fast at the outset. And then that way, when you're ready to launch for an event, you've got a built-in audience already. And what will happen is the better you are at communications, the bigger that audience will become over time because people will see how professional it is. It'll be something that they want to reshare or engage on. So engaging fast is really about at the very outset, when you know you're going to use social media, start building up that audience, start engaging and connecting with other organizations and individuals that you know share a common goal with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. I've learned so much during the first part of your workshop, and I'm excited for the second half. But first, we'll take a brief movement break.
Great.
So I just encourage everyone to get up and stretch, and we'll be back here at 3:21. And just please leave your Zoom window open during the break to avoid any technical issues reconnecting. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to start part 2 of Karen's workshop. And just a quick reminder, if you have any questions for Karen, to please pop them in the chat box. And Karen, I'll hand it right back to you.
Great. Okay. I'm just going to, there we go, adjust my screen here. All right. Thanks for participating with me on that mock scenario and going through some examples. I just want to give a shout out to the whole technical team and organizers of this workshop because I was slightly doubtful after it got canceled in March that we'd make this work, but what a great professional team you guys have and to make this work and to use the technology. So well done. It was really neat to do those breakout rooms as well. So we're going to move on to listening mode now, but feel free to ask questions as we go through. And Torn and others, I might not see questions as they come up, so feel free to just cut in and raise those questions for me. So first, where we're going to go next is powerful photos. This is all about the visuals, and we talked a little bit about that in that last exercise that we went through. Just the importance of good photos. It's better to use no photo than a bad photo. And if you want people to reshare what you're posting, powerful photos, #1 way that things get reshared. So social media. So just to give you some perspective on photos, every day 300 million photos are uploaded to Facebook, 85 million to Instagram. If your photos don't look professional, they will do more harm than good. So these photos below, not great photos. So we're going to talk a bit about photos that are good. It's not that these are terrible, but they're not really social media worthy. So first of all, let's talk about the rule of thirds. What you want to do is figure out that key object that you want to capture in your photo. Now, your phones have settings that allow you to do put the grid view. It's a really helpful tool. So, you know, in this case, right, the building, you don't put it dead center. It's very rare that you would actually put the thing that you're trying to capture dead center. Sort of want it, so if you can imagine sort of tic-tac-toe box here, and so you're trying to move over to one edge of the frame, not right off the frame and not bleeding off the frame, but slightly towards 1/3 of the side of your camera. So, and then the rest just becomes background. So you've got that object that you want to capture up in the foreground. And in the background, you still have some definition in there that provides some context to your story. But using this grid view is a really great tool to help you line up that object that you're trying to capture. And you can see as well in this presentation, I've put all the sources in here too. There's lots of great sources, but just feel free to go to these websites after. There's super good tips. Symmetry, also important. So when you do have that thing that you want to capture that's dead center, and again, we don't do it very often, but when you do, you want to find symmetry. You want to have that balance on both sides of the object you're trying to capture. I mean, this photo is just great. It gives you so much depth. It's beautiful color. It's strong. This is a great photo. And I really believe with nature and even with invasive species, we've got that canvas to work from. So don't hold back on being creative in your photos. The group photo. Group photos are so incredibly difficult to do. So I like this example because how do you get a whole bunch of people into one photo? And this one gives you depth, perspective. You can kind of see the personalities of the people in this photo. Obviously, the lady here in the red dress draws your attention right away to the photo. But there's such a great story in this. So when you're thinking about pictures of you and the volunteers, you know, lining you all up in rows like we're in, you know, middle school photo day. No, aim for something like this because it really does create a lot of interest. When you are taking a photo of especially a person and you've got something big in the background, what you don't want is to put that person right up against it. So think about like a tower, for instance. I see this often. People want to get a picture of a statue in the background and have somebody in front of that statue. So they put the person right up against the statue or this fountain or whatever. And so what happens is the person becomes really tiny. And because you're trying to capture the whole statue, what you really want to do is what you see in this photo, this woman in the red dress, they've brought her to the forefront. Okay, that's what you want to do. They didn't stick her way in the back. They brought her up to the forefront. So think about that when you're taking a photo of a picture next to a person next to a tree. Don't have them right up against the tree. Bring them out in front of the tree several feet, and so that they really stand out in the photo. And again, you're likely to move them over to one of the thirds of the screen, so not dead center as well. So this is from a site called Social Bright. Every year, they look at the top photos from nonprofits around the world. And I thought we could take a look at a couple of these photos because I think it's great storytelling. The visuals are really impactful. So this photo, for instance, it's a great example of when you put something center. But there's still a bit of that third element because you can see another mushroom there off to the side as well, and it kind of sparks your interest. It's got some action to it, but this just really pops. This is a beautiful photo about mushrooms. So who knew, right, that a mushroom photo could be so inspirational and beautiful and eye-catching? And obviously the photographer knew that. So again, this is nonprofit work. Water is life. This is a beautiful story. So, you know, what you're looking at, yes, you see this individual and you can see the expression in his face, but what really jumps out is the house in the background, right? You can see the doors, you can see the cracks, and then of course the text at the bottom. I hate it when my house is so big. I need 2 wireless routers. Like it just really hits home that the challenges that people around the world face that we take for granted quite often. So this is really powerful storytelling. And then this last one, the ALS challenge, I mean, it's got everything going for it, right? It's got fun, enthusiasm, color, and again, a great way to do group photos. They could have had all these people just standing there holding their buckets, but it's got action as well and laughter. Just makes you feel really good. And now on to video. We talked a little bit about video in the initial session. Video is really a powerful tool, and all of our cameras are so equipped to take good video now. So if you just look at the last 3 years, video views have increased by 258% on Facebook. A tweet with a video is 6 times more likely to be retweeted. So there's a couple of rules though to video, because you can do it really bad. Plan ahead. So it's very rare that it works out to sort of just wing it with video in terms of storytelling. So know the story that you want to tell ahead of time. What the big challenge really here is the length. So if you're looking at 30 seconds max on Twitter, 60 seconds on Instagram, don't go any longer. People are not going to watch something more than a minute long. But you really need to be organized to tell a good story in 30 or 60 seconds. So really, it's all about the preparation. Take the time to write a script. Take the time to know what visuals you're going to capture, where you're going to shoot the video. Don't zoom. Lighting is really important, so test the lighting out. Horizontal is best. Vertical videos drive me crazy. Horizontal is much preferred. And again, if you get this video right, people are going to reshare it. Everybody's looking for content from other parties that help them tell their story. All right. PowerPoints. I'm sure a lot of you, when you go to conferences or workshops and you see the list of PowerPoints, I mean, you really start to think, I don't know if I can do another PowerPoint. I don't know if I can sit through one more PowerPoint, right? And so good presenters make PowerPoints. PowerPoints are the background. They're really the tool that helps guide the story that you're telling. The PowerPoint is not the story. So that's really important in here. You also want to think visually, not text. This is an important rule I learned a long time ago about PowerPoint. It's actually impossible for humans to read and listen at the same time. So you have to decide, do I want my audience to read what's on the screen, or do I want them to pay attention to what I'm saying? Now, if your answer is you want them to read what's on the screen, I'm going to be a little bit flippant here, then what you might want to think about doing is just, emailing out your presentation ahead of time so they can read it. The fact is, they're here to see you. They're here to pick up on your passion, your personality, your authenticity, right? That's what they're there for. So let that shine. Your PowerPoint's just the tool to help you shine and to organize your thoughts. Stay on brand. Use a template. I've built my own template here. It's so easy to do. There's so many good templates in PowerPoint. Once you know what your brand is, and the Invasive Species Council I know has tons of great communications tools and templates as well, stay on brand. Don't start fooling around with fonts and logos. Use one font. Use one logo. Have that logo in the same place on every single screen. use the same color template or palette as well. Also, this isn't an essay. This isn't a research project. This is a story. And so your story has to have peaks to it. We used to like to believe there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to a PowerPoint. No, there's peaks. And if you think about great storytelling, Martin Luther's I Have a Dream, right? That has peaks all the way through that capture your interest throughout the whole PowerPoint so that people aren't, well, I'll just hang around for the last slide. No, they want to be part of your story, and they love the way your presentation is unfolding. They're waiting for that next slide. Obviously, test your hardware, know how to use it. You know, this is probably the greatest test of my anxiety on technology, is to have a webinar like this with Zoom. I know Zoom quite well, but I haven't tried to do online exercises before. So again, thanks to Torrin and crew for doing some dry runs with me. Talk like TED. Go watch some TED videos. TED is where it's at in terms of presentation and body language. And just the use of visuals. I have, worked with CEOs, some like tons of text on a screen. I gently talk them out of that. The best presenters I've seen are the ones who just use visuals, slide by slide. What I like to do is I like a few bullets, I do, but I like a strong visual. What I lean on a lot is that very top line you see here on that screen, talk like TED. I believe every PowerPoint slide, the top line should be your key message, the point you're trying to make. If they can only remember one thing from this slide or what they've just heard you say about that slide, it should be that top line of your slide. So think about that. Be authentic. I mentioned that before. That's why we started off with the elevator pitch today, knowing your story. So be authentic. Don't come up robotic. And there's even great TED Talks about how to present and body language. Start with an interesting fact or statistic, right? I started today about the communications not being technology, getting people to think a little bit different. And of course, you always want to wrap it up with a compelling call to action that you're asking your audience to take some action here. All right, now we get into some of the bonus rounds here. Media relations. This is, I have been in the field of communications for a number of decades. I believe people who work in media relations are their own special group of people. This is not my wheelhouse, media relations. I do it on a very regular basis. I never get comfortable with it. So I prepare a lot for media relations, but this is hard work with great return. So I like to call it elbow grease. Earn media. Earn media is simply media that you got to go out and earn. You've got to write the story. You've got to pitch the story. You've got to convince the media to cover your story. You've got to get them maybe to come out to an event. That's earned media. So how do you go about earned media? Well, first of all, know who your media outlets are in your community, who you're going to target, right? So create that list. You should have, every good communications professional actually has a database, Excel spreadsheet, MailChimp, whatever, of key media that they use. And that would include the name of the outlet, the type of medium, is it radio, television, print, online, what their schedule is, their deadlines. Deadlines are really important. If you want to annoy a reporter, then you don't pay attention to deadlines. So pay attention to deadlines. It's a little bit easier now with the internet because media outlets can post a story online and then the paper comes out 2 or 3 days later as well. That's okay. Understand the reporter that you might be targeting. Do some research on them. See what kind of stories they've covered in the past, some of the issues and what the kind of angle has been. So understand that. Understand as well if they've covered, for instance, invasive species. See what they've written about invasive species. So understand as well the news value, right? The timeliness of the story, the proximity to town? What makes it unique? Why would they care about this from a news angle? Again, fall back on your elevator pitch, right? That's how you're going to open up this conversation. This is who I am. This is why I want you to care. Be available, for heaven's sakes. Don't issue a news release and then not pick up the phone when the media call. And think about the medium, right? Radio station. So if your whole story is visual, you're going to have to rethink how a radio station might cover this event. So those are important things to know when you're developing your earned media strategy. So we're going to talk a little bit about writing, and again, this really could be a whole day course. So apologies, I'm flying through a lot of pieces here fast. So Einstein's theory of writing, and that's what I call this. Everything should be made simple as possible, but not simpler, right? You don't need to dumb it down, but keep it simple. I think we tend to overcomplicate our writing. We believe that people need to know everything. They've got to have the whole background. No, keep it simple. I try to tell people if they can only have one takeaway from what you've written, what would it be? What would you want to leave them with? So that gets me to news releases. News releases, you either love writing them or you don't like writing them. I happen to love writing a news release because a news release forces you to focus on what's truly important. Social media makes you focus that way as well. So when you're thinking about a news release, there's actually a formula to how a news release is written. It's called the inverted pyramid. All news stories are for print are built this way. And I'll tell you the reason why. The reason why is people read headlines. Maybe if you're lucky, they'll read the first paragraph. If you're really lucky, they'll read maybe the second or third paragraph. A news editor knows this. So when you write a news release or any story, an editor is looking at space. So let's say you submit a story that's 500 words long and the editor only has 250 word space. What that editor will do is he or she is going to chop that story in half. So think about that as you're writing, what you would want chopped off, because that will happen. The other thing I want to say about news releases and how important they are today, you know, I would say 10, 15 years ago, news releases, they didn't always get picked up. It was tough. You really had to work hard. Nowadays, especially the community newspapers, your local reporter might be the editor, might be the advertising and sales person as well for that newspaper. Heck, they may actually have a full-time job during the day. So they're looking for content, and they're looking for content that they can literally cut and paste into the newspaper. So the easier you make their work for them, the more likely it is that your news release will actually run verbatim in the newspaper. This happens a lot to me. I love it. So if you can write it the way they would write it, you've made their job simple. They can just cut and paste it in. And again, following the inverted pyramid means if they don't have enough space, they can just chop off the last 3 paragraphs of your news release because you've written a good news release. So how do you do that? Your news release starts off obviously with the headline. We're going to talk about that, but it's about the who, what, when, and where, why, and sometimes how. All of that is the first paragraph of your news release. It feels like a lot to put in there, but this is what we call the lead. It's the lead, and that is typically what people will read. They won't read past the first paragraph. I'm sorry to tell you that. So think about that. This is the toughest part of the news release to write, is the lead. And always start by writing your lead. Don't start by writing your headline. And then you're going to follow out of that with some quotes from some of the key people involved, some supporting information and facts. And as you can see, you start kind of have less and less relevant or super important information as you finish that news release. Try to keep your news release to 1 page, at the most 1.5 pages. Don't go any longer than that. And then some key pieces that you need in there: dateline, headline, lead, body, media contact. Any questions about that?
Karen, we've got one question from Brittany. Just back to the PowerPoint. She's wondering if you have any recommendations on how to break up content in PowerPoints, for example, using embedded videos.
Yeah, that's so what I do, you can embed a video. I tend to embed a video because you never know for sure what the internet connection might be like, or whether you're going to even have that in a conference sometimes. So what I do is I do embed the video. What it will do is create a massive PowerPoint. So you're going to need to make sure you've got your PowerPoint on a stick, and I would suggest not doing a live link back to the internet. So it's easy enough to embed a PowerPoint into your presentation, and I can include some tips after this workshop for people on how to do that, but that's what I would suggest. All right, so I talked about the lead. The most important sentence in any article is the first one, right? You want to induce the reader to keep on reading, to go a little bit further with your story. So now I'm going to talk a bit about headlines. So after you have written your entire news release, that's when you go back and you write your headline. Headlines are really, really tough to write. If you're the Globe and Mail or the Vancouver Sun, bigger newspaper outlets, they actually have people, that's what they do. Their job is to write the headline, because they're not easy. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of bad headlines followed up with good headlines. And again, the beauty of these headlines, once you've got them, they make for great content for your social media as well. So here's a headline: Honda, Nissan, Toyota commit to greener future for cars. Okay, that's okay. It's not bad. How about this one? These companies are uniting to create a more eco-friendly world, right? These competitors are uniting. Cool. Another one: New Dell Teaching and Learning Academy focus on instructional needs and personalized learning. Okay. How about Dell's Teaching and Learning Academy makes using its products snap, right? Exactly what it is. I'm not even going to read this one because it's so long, but how do I find the right home to move to, the tricks, 4 essential steps? Okay, that's a lot for a headline. How about 4 steps to secure your dream property? Right? That's a great headline. And when you see that, you can see how well that would work as well for social media, right? Really eye-catching. It makes you want to go, yeah, 4 steps. I got time to read about 4 steps. So that's how you write headlines. Okay, I threw in 2 bonus slides here. I had wanted to cover this in the in-person workshop. This is about putting it all together. I've talked a lot about different tools, and none of those tools, you shouldn't embark on any of these tools until you take the first step. And the first step is actually developing a communications plan. And I'm going to give you the key steps of a communications plan. Communications strategy can be 20 pages long, depending on the initiative. It can be 2 pages long. Right? But the fact is, map out what it is you're trying to achieve. That's how you get the best results. A communications plan is going to force you to walk through some important steps. So I'm going to show you those. So here's the key elements. Background, right? What's the purpose of this communication strategy? Right? What's the current state? Right? If it was the Burberry ash, right? That's the current state. This thing could kill baby trees. Right? And that's so the current state, the problem that we're trying to solve. What's the goal? What do you hope at the end of this communication strategy, if it's successful? What will it have achieved? People are aware of the Burberry ash, we reduce the amount of Burberry ash and its growth, and we save trees, right? What audience? Who are you trying to reach out to? So really think about this one. This one's really key. And as you think about audience, think about the messages you would deliver. Not every message fits every audience. So you've got to think about that. Think about the mediums you would use for media, right? Would you use traditional media like newspapers and radio and television? Or would you use social media? Maybe you use all of them, but you're going to have to figure out which mediums your audience use or platforms and what the messages are by those audiences. And then the plan, this is where you start getting into tactics and budget and timelines. For my work plan, I always work backwards from the actual event day. And then roles and responsibilities, also really important. I've seen way too many times when that is not clearly defined, and you find out at the 11th hour that something hasn't happened or somebody didn't know they were responsible. And then, of course, evaluation. You got to hold yourself accountable here, right? So you're going to have to have some measures of success and goals versus outcomes, and ask yourself how you're going to measure those, and then report out. You get to show what you've achieved. So communication strategy is absolutely essential. And as I mentioned, I could do a whole day workshop on communication strategies, but just this map on its own should help you. And please start with this when you're rolling out some sort of a communications initiative. It's going to help you figure out what tools, your budget, the resources, and help you actually accomplish what it is you're setting out to do. I don't know if we've got any time before I wrap up, but I'm just going to open it up to any questions.
I think that's great. Let's give the folks a minute or two to drop any questions you might have in the chat here or on Facebook.
Okay.
And see if anyone else wants to weigh in.
Sure. And if they're doing that, this is my last slide. So recap, know your story, own it, right? Get really comfortable with that story. And again, we heard Justin, right? He knows the story. He's comfortable in that place. And once you have that piece, the other pieces actually come up pretty easy. Plan, implement, and evaluate the communication strategy. Keep your story simple, but keep it inspiring. And social media, sure, it's about meaningful connections. So it's about building that audience base, building partnerships, collaboration. Your network will grow by using social media. It is an absolutely fantastic tool when used right.
So we've got a few questions in the box here. The first one from Patty Beer is, how would you apply some of this to websites?
Yeah, websites. I would start with the communication strategy. And you would identify that you need a website. And then again, you would have your messages developed. So think again about your audience, how they might look for information on your website, the types of things they would want from your website for information. So it's almost a website, you almost develop like a communication strategy.
Next question is about media spin, and is there a way to protect yourself from negative spin?
Okay, so as a communications professional, we don't use the word spin.
Duly noted.
So, good work. I love that it came up though, because spin makes it sound like we're trying to tell something that isn't the truth, right? And that isn't what we're doing here. We're telling the truth, and we're inspiring people. So negative stories that are out there. Working in forestry, and I've spent a lot of time working on environmental campaigns. What I would say about negativity is, first of all, there's always an element of truth. Usually, something has triggered something in there, and you should find out what that is, and be open to receiving that criticism and digging a little bit deeper into yourself or your organization and what you can do to address that. But I would also say that sometimes that negativity can build on itself as well and become bigger. And it's really easy to start being reactive rather than proactive. So if you've built a good platform where you've got a good group of partners and a good network, and you feel really comfortable in your own story, the negativity actually goes away. I counsel a lot of clients is that spend 10% of your time dealing with the negativity and 90% being a good organization, because that will overrule that negativity at the end.
Absolutely. Well, I love the wisdom of just, focus on being yourself and living your truth, and the negativity does fall away in most cases, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties on my end here. We are coming to the end of the presentation here. There's a couple of questions we haven't been able to get to, so I think we'll send those your way, and hopefully you'll be able to provide us an answer. That's great. And I just want to take a quick moment here to thank you myself personally, and I know that I'm speaking for a lot of our attendees, for all of our attendees and my colleagues, to say thank you. That was incredible, and there's so much information in there. I know we had someone ask about sharing the presentation, and I would love to get those slides, because I think I can go back to those and really get a lot out of there.
You bet, anytime. Yep, and yes, feel free, you've got my email address. Any of you, please feel free to email me anytime you just want me to take a quick look at something. You do important work, and I'll count that as part of my volunteer time too, is supporting all of you as you're reaching out to communities and building your story.